of questions here that I'll go through, and we'll both of us chat about it. So I guess everyone who's listening knows about Zooko, founder of Zcash, and but maybe like, do you want to share a little bit about like how you got into all this, and how do you remember the first time that we met, the two of us?
I don't. I think you and I were both at the 2013 San Jose Bitcoin conference, right?
Oh, we did not meet there, I think.
Right. I think we
I
didn't.
definitely was there, and I know you were there, but we did not meet there. I remember my first recollection of meeting you. Well, we had a bunch of Zoom meetings about discussing co-founding the electric coin company, but I think the first time we met in person, is at a sort of a company small event that happened in Cancun right after DevCon. That's at least my first memory of meeting you in person, and I think that was already when was that? The Cancun meeting.
I don't remember. It was it after the launch of Zcash in 2016?
I think it was after. So I think there was a Dev Connect, there was an Ethereum Dev Connect, which I think was in 2018. So it was already 2 years after the launch. Until then, most of the ways we met was like, was it Zoom, or it was before Zoom? There was some other. Zoom. Yeah, there was some other online thing. Probably didn't even have video at first. Yeah. So
pretty amazing we did all that without meeting in person.
Yep. Yeah, remote first, when remote first wasn't yet a thing, pre-COVID. So what were you doing before? Like, how did you get into Zcash?
I got into Zcash because I was totally into David Chaum's DigiCash in the 1990s. Let's see. I went to university in 1993, and then instead of paying attention in classes, I read David Chaum's papers that I found on FTP sites. And yeah, so that was in the 1990s, and that was like the pre-Bitcoin.
Okay, so in the 1990s, but what happened? So, right, you started Zcash, or we started Zcash about like 2015 or so.
Yeah, 2015.
So what were you doing back then? I remember Least Authority, but like...
Yeah, I was working on this startup named Least Authority, which does security audits. It is still in business, and so if you need security audits, you should hire them. And we did, Least Authority developed, well, various open source contributors developed an end-to-end encrypted cloud file system. And Matt Green noticed that. Matt Green, the computer scientist from Johns Hopkins, who is another one of our co-founders on Zcash. And he was the co-author with you on the Zero Cash paper. Did you meet Matt at the San Jose conference in 2013?
No, I did not. I think Ian Myers, who was one of the other co-authors of Zero Code, also was at the 2013 conference. I knew he was there, but I'm not sure we met there. We did start collaborating right after that, because basically there was this very nice Zero Coin paper that didn't have general purpose zero knowledge. We'll get to that in a minute, but did care about privacy for blockchain. And we had this like very good zk-SNARK engine, general purpose. We were trying to compile from C to it at the time. And we said, well, let's team up and take this, very powerful zk-SNARK engine and put it to some good use into like privacy over blockchain. That's like on the academic side.
My peanut butter.
Yeah. but we did not. So a whole bunch, I guess, of, I hear more and more people who are now very dominant in blockchain space said that they were at the Bitcoin conference in 2013. But most of those folks did not necessarily meet there. So yeah, we were both there, but didn't meet. I can share that at the time I was a professor of like math and computer science, and I was implementing ZK systems. But until that conference in 2013, I didn't realize that ZK is as relevant to blockchain as I thought. And it was also the first time that I realized that the scaling properties of zk that we'll get to later, there's privacy and scaling, could really be important for blockchain. Tell us, okay, each of us should
on
share.
my side, it was the papers, the zero coin paper. So I was working on this stuff before Bitcoin, and then one thing I saw as soon as I saw Bitcoin, I don't know if you know this, Ellie, but I wrote the first blog post ever written about Bitcoin in like January 2009 or something. Yeah.
No shit.
And
I did not know that.
And Satoshi linked to my homepage. My homepage, Waydai's, and Nick Szabo's was the 3 links on the initial Bitcoin.org homepage. But I immediately thought of Bitcoin's privacy properties as being irredeemable, not fixable.
Yeah. Wait, now question, since it's only the two of us, who's Satoshi?
I don't speculate. I don't speculate out of respect for Satoshi.
Okay.
It's like if someone...
Is it you?
No.
Okay.
Someone wants privacy, you should give it to them. It's polite.
Okay, I agree.
I did give a talk in Singapore like just a few weeks ago, and I disclosed something about my friend Hal. Did you hear about that at all, Ellie?
No, and I'm sure that many of the listeners did not hear it.
It was a totally unscripted talk because I couldn't decide what to say, and I didn't have any slides or anything. And so, because I was friends with Hal Finney. Hal Finney was a really important contributor to Bitcoin in the early days.
Was he Satoshi?
But that's the point of my story. Before that, for decades, Hal Finney was a really important contributor to all kinds of cryptography projects, open source projects and stuff. But he was a friend and mentor to me. And he got amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, that really terrible, like, degenerative disease. And he lost the ability to move. And so he could only communicate by, they got a machine where the only thing he could move was his eyeballs. And they got a machine where whichever direction he moved his eyeballs, he could pick out letters that way in order to type. And so at that point, at sort of the last chance, I said, "Hal, are you Satoshi?" in like text messages. And he laboriously typed back and he said, "No, and I have no reason to lie to you because I'm literally on my deathbed." And I never told anyone that because I don't like to add information. I don't like to.
Though he, to best of our knowledge, I mean, Hal is not really 100% dead, right? He's cryogenically frozen.
Yeah. He had his head, or he and his wife had his head frozen in liquid nitrogen, which I always think of Star Wars when Han Solo is frozen in carbonite.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he may, he may come back. So we don't know that he's dead, and we don't know that Satoshi is dead. Okay, let's each of us share an interesting fact or story about the early days of Zcash that probably most of our listeners don't know of. You go first.
An interesting fact or story that most listeners probably don't know very many things about the early days of Zcash. It was long ago.
You're
right. The first thing that jumps to my mind is we had to do this setup ceremony because back then we didn't have mathematically verifiable zero-knowledge proofs, which you are an expert on, and you're one of the reasons why we have them today. But since we didn't have those, we had to do this operational security process to try to generate the right random numbers without any hackers.
AKA the ceremony. There's a beautiful NPR podcast about it. I hope someone can find the link and tweet it. It's really
that was a really great podcast by NPR, by Radiolab, called The Ceremony. Okay, here's the random fact. Nobody knows this. We did a dry run of the ceremony the weekend before to, try to see if it would work out the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And we took it really seriously. We even thought, like, if something goes wrong and we don't succeed at the ceremony next weekend, maybe we could use the numbers we're generating this weekend. And so we went all out on the operational security. We turned off our phones. We had paper maps to navigate. And we pulled into a hotel because we were going to rent a hotel room in cash so that any spies that were following us wouldn't know where to go to hack our computers. We pulled into this random hotel that we had followed on a paper map in Boulder, Colorado. And the driver, my friend, is a videographer, and I'd asked him to help out with this, to make videos of the ceremony. And he had a van, and he was driving the van. And we were pulling up to this hotel, and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "What? He said, "What's going on?" And I looked out the window, and the parking lot was full of federal police officers wearing guns on their hips. He was like,
someone told them the ceremony.
So we turned around, and one of them stopped us and said, "Don't come in here." And we were like, "Okay, we're not." And
there's a ceremony being done for some new cryptographic protocol. We got to apprehend some people.
That weekend in the paper, it turned out there had been a bomb threat at that hotel that weekend. And an important fact for the historical record, the bomber was a midget. That's a fact. You can look it up.
Little known about the preparation for the ceremony, but you got to listen to the NPR podcast. The best thing that I can remember that is like probably not known to most people is I think a week or so after Zcash was released, and there was a lot of price action back there around just the launch. The days of the launch was pretty crazy. It dissipated and died a few weeks later, but initially it was pretty crazy. And then next thing I read is the Italian parliament is having discussions about banning Zcash. And I'm like, do you remember that? Because it's privacy tech and really, really bad. So and I'm like, oh, wow, interesting that the good thing that the Italian parliament knows about recent cryptographic protocols. I think they haven't banned it till this day, to the best of my knowledge.
Nope, not as far as I know.
Okay, so next, what is ZK? How do you explain it? I'm sure you've done this a million times.
No, you've done it
as well. So let's each explain. What is ZK?
Well, I like the proof part, the integrity part. Yeah, people call it ZK.
How do you?
It's really just, isn't it cool that you can prove things by showing that nobody else could have come up with the following number if the thing weren't true? That's amazing.
Yeah. The way I usually explain it is I say when you get a grocery receipt or a restaurant receipt, it is a proof. It proves to you a certain statement, and the statement is, you should pay whatever, $20 for these items plus the tax,
inflation,
plus the service.
Man, $100 at least.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that inflation is at work. Well, not as much on Bitcoin or Zcash or Starknet. So there are some things that, and then so you get this grocery receipt, and it is a proof. So we all are familiar with proofs because we are all familiar with grocery receipts and restaurant receipts. But what is really magical about the kind of proofs that you and I work with for a living, there are two magical aspects to them. One is that you could imagine that everything is sort of blinded out except for the total sum. And even though you have no idea who the restaurant owner was and what their intention is, you can still know that this computation was done with integrity, and you have to pay, $100. That's the ZK or privacy part. And the other magical part is that even if you at this restaurant had 1 million items that needed to be summed up, you get something that is not with 1 million lines, but has in it, let's say, 10 lines, and you just quickly, verify something very simple about these 10 lines, and you still know that these 1 million items were summed up and computed correctly. So that's the scalability. There's a scalability magical part, and there's a privacy magical part. And do you want to like explain how does ZK? There's a whole bunch of other really cool. Well, some of them are cool. Technologies for privacy like T's, MPCs, and FHEs. Do you want to explain like how ZK is better or worse than any of those?
Acronym soup.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand very much, and you probably do, about FHEs. But the main thing to me is that ZK is like battle-proven thing. Like we know how to implement it. Sometimes some people can implement it securely, so it can't be hacked. And we know we can run it. We can implement it efficiently enough that you can run it on smartphones and TVs and devices and things. Whereas that other stuff is novel to me. I haven't seen people implementing.
What do you think about trusted execution environments in particular?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I used to think
BTMs and so on and stuff like that. SGX.
What? Oh yeah, SGX. Yeah. I keep going back and forth because there's 3 different issues about those. One is, do they work? Can they be implemented securely? Which is always a huge problem with everything. Like all software and hardware and things that humans design are failure prone. And that's the recent news. There was yet another discovery of a way that those structures could be exploited under certain conditions. They're not flawless. But that's pretty normal. I think we know how to deal. Well, it's pretty normal. We're familiar with things breaking. The other thing that's always bugged me about it, and speaking of Hal Finney, he was the first person to investigate the use of such things and to advocate for them. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
There was a trusted execution hardware module made by IBM. I forget the name of it now. And Hal was the first person to do a useful, interesting hack with one and to teach other people how to do so and to advocate that if we had these secure hardware modules, it might be useful for us. Yeah. But even so, starting then, which was probably in the late 90s or early 2000s, the thing that bugs me about it is that the manufacturer, IBM in that case, or Intel in this case, sort of has a backdoor. That's what bugs me. Like, there are some use cases where, like, well, maybe all use cases at this point where everyone is willing to trust Intel, right? Like, well, I guess my laptop has actually got no Intel inside, but most people are willing to trust Intel for most things, and that's fine if that works and Intel doesn't exploit them. But it seems limiting to me.
Yeah,
I always want to think of sort of the unlimited context where aliens arrive and one of their rules of their culture is that they're not going to rely on Intel, and now you want to work with them. What do you do? But the third thing about the TEEs, it was Andrew Miller, who's another one of our co-founders on Zcash, who taught me this, is that TEEs can do really useful things that cryptography can't. So therefore, I'm on the fence. I can't decide. But
okay. I am more opinionated. I don't like TEEs.
Oh yeah,
especially in the context of blockchain, just because given enough dollars, some a nation state could probably extract the secret keys inside these physical devices, and then basically just blow the whole thing up. Sort of sign off as if it's this Intel chip on anything it wants to do. So in the context of like decentralized blockchains, it is a far lesser technology than something like ZK. And I agree with you that like FHE and MPC, which are really cool technologies, first of all, they don't quite deliver integrity, which is really what proofs give you. But you could combine proofs with them.
Right, you could.
They're good in certain privacy settings, but mostly they're newer technologies in terms of, well, not necessarily newer, but like they aren't as widely used as ZK by now. So it's but they'll have their time.
They're newer in terms of industrialization,
Yes, yes. FHE is newer. MPC goes a very long while back, roughly to the days of ZK, but sort of it's not so much in use because it's a bit more complicated to use properly.
Well, let me argue real quick.
Yeah?
You were saying you don't like TEEs, and implicitly that's using TEE instead of ZK or MPC or something else, some kind of cryptography or something to accomplish the same thing. And I generally agree with that. I don't want to rely on a TE instead of relying on math if I can help it. But then you were saying we can combine MPC and FHE with ZKP.
Yeah.
Because ZKP adds something that the others don't have. Maybe that can be true for TEs too. Maybe you can additionally gain some benefit from them without replacing something better with them.
Well, if I were willing to trust them for anything, then yes, you could add something. But since I have this very bleak view, or rather, I am very extreme in my, I want to build things that no one can hack. In fact, like zk-SNARKs, even a nation state cannot break. Like even if you try really hard, there's not even a toxic waste or trusted. It's really you need to break a hash function, and it could be any hash function and could be replaced. So like I think that we can demand and aspire for that kind of level of integrity. And then I just don't want these anywhere around when I deal with integrity because of this thing that like a nation state, right? A Lazarus Group, given enough dollars, could buy a bunch of Intel chips and extract the secret keys from them and just imitate, like as if this was a proper TEE running in the context of whatever your consensus protocol. So and you relied on it for something, right? No matter. Like if you don't rely on it because you have like ZK, then I don't want it. But if you somehow used it because you intend to rely on it for anything, then I think it's very problematic because maybe Lazarus Group is, signing off or encrypting or decrypting whatever it is that you want to be going on in that T. So I don't want to,
That's a pretty good argument. Why don't you invite Andrew Miller to your next Twitter Spaces?
Yeah. Okay, I'll put it down.
I really like to make the best, safest thing possible, which I think of, well, for one thing, just protecting individuals so they don't get hurt. But also I think of it as scalability. Like if the thing has a 1% chance of you getting, rugged or hacked or exploited, that's going to radically reduce how many people are willing to rely on the thing at the same time, right? And if you can squeeze that down, you have a 1 in a million chance of getting exploited, then more people can use it. But still, there's a lot of people who aren't going to use the thing that puts them at risk of 1 in a million chance of getting exploited, right? So if you can squeeze it down like cryptographers do to no chance at this layer. In the math part, there's 0 chance. We'll just call it 0. Cryptographers like to be picky. But it's going to be simpler to say that's 0.
Okay, I want to move on to
0.
I want to move on to privacy. Like I am pleasantly surprised that everyone now discovered that privacy is important. And it is very much related to the extreme new interest in Zcash. Can you explain that? Like, are you as surprised, or like you saw this coming, or what's like, why now?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I've been claiming that this would happen for a long time. There was a narrative that people don't care about privacy. I read the tweets that people had sent us questions, and one of them said something like, don't people trade privacy for convenience? And there was this narrative that like we checked, we did an experiment, we tested, and it turns out consumers don't care about their privacy. And I would read, reports and studies about that for a long time, for like decades at this point. But then at some point I noticed that the author or the sponsors who organized those studies were always Google and Facebook.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. And then I thought about the behavior of users that I know, like especially younger users. There's another narrative among older people like you and me that youngsters, are idiots and don't know what they're doing, and they don't care about their privacy like we old folks do. And then I realized that's totally wrong when you look at their behavior. Like people who are on Snapchat or whatever all day long. Now it's TikTok. But anyway, the people who are on the internet all day long on their phones. And a lot of the decisions that matter to them that they put energy into are actually privacy decisions, like who's going to be able to see this, who gets my phone number. All those questions are really frequently very important to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that it's not that people don't care about privacy, it's that there's this gap between normal users who want normal things and we theorists who are thinking about like whether the Lazarus group from North Korea can hack into your TEE. That's just that the normal people don't know any of those names or words and haven't thought of that as a possibility. They're not thinking about that, but they do care a whole lot about like which of their friends finds out what when, right? Yeah. So I've been going around saying for like a decade or so now, no, people actually really care about this stuff. They just don't realize the connection between what they care about and the technology we're working on.
My view has always been that, yeah, sure, people care when you ask them. And like maybe a way to phrase it is sort of, if I could press a button and everything would be private, sure, I would like everything to be private. But I think, at least let's say within blockchain, if I'm faced between, well, I want to do a whole bunch of whatever DeFi stuff or buy the next meme coin or do whatever it is, and there is no privacy, well, or it's going to be like really, really complicated to do it with privacy, then I'll go around it, or I'll do these things that are a little bit in line with what you said. Like a lot of my friends will say the following thing. I will sort of anonymize my stuff by basically going in and out all the time of a centralized exchange and sort of using it as a mixer. Mm-hmm. So people are very aware, and sort of the UX convenience or inconvenience of just going quickly into a centralized exchange, waiting for a day, pulling out to some fresh address, to them is like a good enough proxy. I'm just reporting this, like they're saying, okay, this is some way that it's not going to be so easy to track.
Right.
Compromise our privacy. But again, like still, like you've been talking about this for a decade. I've been mentioning it for a while, but I with Starknet went a little bit more to the side of scalability, even though I love privacy because of these things. Like, but why, if you've been advocating for this for more than a decade, like why now? Why not like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
I'll try to answer that. But let me respond to what you were saying a second ago. A lot of people think there's a trade-off between privacy and UX, and that's really the same. Privacy is almost the same thing as security in a lot of ways. So a lot of people say there's a trade-off between security and UX. Like you can have the easy thing that just works, or you can like learn weird practices in order to have the secure version. Mm-hmm. And that always bugs me because really, really good UX, like learning anything is bad UX. If you have to learn a thing in order to do what you wanted to do, that's like a hurdle. Mm-hmm. Really, really good UX is that you get to do the thing you wanted to do and you get the result you expected, right?
Yeah.
And so as far as security and privacy go, those are both part of the best UX. It's like I get to do the thing. It's trading meme coins or messaging my friend and sending them a selfie or loading my calendar or whatever it is that you want to do. And you don't get hacked. And you don't get like spied on and tracked and exploited by advertisers or North Korea or whatever. So good, really, really good UX is just the thing works like the normal person wanted it to work without thinking twice. Mm-hmm. And more than once, like many times, I've talked to just random strangers like Uber drivers or people standing next to me in the line at the coffee shop or whatever. And they don't know anything about Zcash or crypto or anything, right? And somehow that topic comes up and I say something like, "So, what do you think of Bitcoin?" Because that's the word they know. They don't even know the word crypto, right? That's
Right.
normal
Yeah,
people
they know
don't even know
Bitcoin.
that the word is crypto is a word. They wouldn't
Mhm.
recognize that word. But I say, "So, what do you think of Bitcoin?" And a lot of times what they say is, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. Apparently it's private." That's their number one thing. That's what they think is important or interesting
Mhm.
about this whole field, which the word for this whole field in their vocabulary is Bitcoin. So anyway, that's just more evidence that normal people actually really, really care about privacy, way more than crypto people do, actually, currently. But your question was, why now? I don't know. It's really wonderful that the price of Zcash has been going up. The price of the Zcoin has been going up and up and up for a while now. In the last 4 days or however long it's been, all the other coins have been going down and Zcash keeps going up, which is amazing and surprising to me. And it's really wonderful because that fuels up the Zcash movement. All those people who, as your listeners might not know, but I am but a minor player in Zcash today. There's like a bunch of companies and people and
It's not that they don't know. They and I know otherwise. You're not but a minor player there, and you
well,
never have been and probably never will be. That's okay.
I'm the
You're the Zcash OG.
I'm the spokesperson. Yeah, I'm the mascot. Um, but my point is the price of Zcash going up is funding and fueling a whole bunch of organizations and just like, how do I put this? They're activists. There's these like cypherpunk underground patriots who just care about this stuff more than anything. And now they have money with which to activate their mission. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
I have no control over any of those folks. Like some of them will listen to me if I advocate for something, others won't. But the point is Zcash is way too like decentralized. It's more like Bitcoin than like
Yeah,
something that's
my theory as
gonna
to so I have no idea like why now and why in this way. It did catch me by surprise. To me, it's a little bit like part of this, like the whole story of crypto. One could say is a combination of several things. The first is that honestly, very little in crypto has product market fit. I'll explain. To me, product market fit is like passing the toothbrush test, which means something that everybody uses once or twice a day and finds value in it. Now, as long as my mom and friends are not using crypto once or twice a day and finding value in it, which I'll tell you they're not, we don't yet have across any of crypto product market fit. At the same time, there's a lot of anticipation, and I side with that, that this will be the infrastructure for, the integrity web, for the better way to do things, where you and I truly own our life and, have a way to stand up in face of, big corporations and nation states and, truly own it, stuff. Okay. And I believe in that. And finally, there are all kinds of things that you can actually invest in based on these beliefs. So the combination of no product market fit yet, combined with a lot of anticipation and investable things, means that it's a little bit like with fashion. Like we all know that there's going to be something really popular in spring, some whatever shirt or band or like a watch that everyone. I heard that right now everyone needs a Labubu. Have you heard of Labubus?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you, Zooko, do you have a Labubu?
I have a Z Boo Boo somewhere, but it's not in my office.
Okay. So, anyways, like, there's going to be some kabubu or some who knows what in the spring, right? We just don't know what it is. So, I think there's this thing of like the fashion changes and people like try to, come in and go with these things that have a lot of power. So, what I am pleasantly surprised about right now is that once in a while, it is something of really big importance that, as you say, fuels innovation and work on important human values like privacy, which is part of what protects our human dignity and empowers us in the face of everything out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice that once in a while, the sort of weird actions of crypto sort of lands on something that isn't just some shit coin or meme coin or, the latest thing. It's like something that is actually related to real technology, real innovation, and real human values that need protection.
And
Yeah.
it relates in my mind to what you said about product market fit. There's because you're saying your mom or whoever would use the thing. And I was thinking of a lot, I know a lot of people of this sort of peripheral category that are not crypto investors or technologists or whatever, who have told me that it's important to them that they buy and hold Zcash, even though they're not crypto investors. That's, to them, it's moving some of their assets out of reach of evil powers that they fear or anticipate. And that's like satisfying to them. Like they did the thing and they feel good every day. You know what I'm saying? Like basically, I think that might be a kind of product market fit for those people.
Yeah, it's just that, I mean,
well, they brush their teeth every day, but they wake up every day thinking they're happy with their situation.
Maybe, I mean, I'm a bit too, like, whenever someone uses something, right, whatever, a tricycle or a unicycle, right, some people use it. So, unicycles have product market fit for some.
Right.
But
right.
what I mean is, it's not yet, the sort of toothbrush. Like all of us, most of us have toothbrush brushes, but not most of us. I don't know if you own a unicycle. I do not.
I do
And I know one person who owns a unicycle, but like most of us don't.
I do not.
Yeah. So,
well, what I think about product market fit is feedback loops, right? I'm an engineer, and everything in the world is trade-offs and feedback loops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll see if like the price of Zcash starts going down again tomorrow. But if it keeps going up and up for a long time, like years, then that's a feedback loop, because the more the price of Zcash goes up, the more people find out about it and think, oh, I could use this to move some of my wealth out of reach. And the more people do that, the more the price goes up. So it's a feedback loop.
I think this is a very good point to remind everyone listening that nothing that we say is investment advice. Do your own research and so on and so forth. Are you worried about like law enforcement and legal frameworks, like waking up and cracking down on privacy and on crypto in light of privacy?
That's a great question. We strategized for that from the beginning, like from 2015, when I first started talking to you about cooperating to launch Zcash. A big question was, how do we make it so that it doesn't get outlawed, banned, or whatever? And the first strategy is just move fast, right? Like the more people have it before the governments notice it, the better. And that worked. A lot of people,
well, except for the Italian parliament.
What's that?
Except for the Italian parliament that wanted to ban it 1 week after it launched.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of layers to that. A lot of it is a part of, since I'm a technologist, I think about distributed systems and cryptography and stuff. I really like to use those tools to make things harder for centralized powers to get their hands around. Like end-to-end encryption is fantastic for that, right? Like that makes a huge difference because it's a technology. But also, I spoke to Brian Armstrong once, the founder of Coinbase, who I also met at the San Jose Bitcoin conference.
I met him. Well, I didn't speak to him, but like I saw him there, and I remember seeing him there.
Yeah, he and Fred Ersam had a folding table with two like metal folding chairs.
I remember that. Yeah, and there were a lot of heated conversations about something.
Well, I spoke to her more recently. I don't know, like a couple of years ago. I guess it was during the Biden administration, when the government's undeclared but apparent policy was to try to stamp out all crypto from American shores. And I said to Brian Armstrong, what's a good strategy to be resilient against that kind of threat? And his answer was literally like a 2-word sentence answer. It was 100 million users.
As in, they will influence the vote, which has probably played a role in the election of Trump. Maybe.
Anyway, what was the question again? Oh, am I worried? I'm not really worried, like, personally. Like, another one of the many interesting puzzle pieces is that America actually still has rights and the rule of law, despite everything.
Yeah.
You can just do things. You don't need the government's permission in America.
Yeah. I agree. Let's talk a little bit about scalability, which is the other superpower of ZK.
Yeah.
And I must say, you always have the situation where when there are several things, you have to pick one that you like most. So I think, I don't know about you, like for me, scalability is always, the scalability aspect of ZK has always fascinated me more. And maybe that's why, StarkWare and Starknet have prioritized the scalability aspect of ZK technology over privacy. But how do you explain, like, why? I mean, we live in a world where everything that is related to computer networks is like scaling up like crazy. We don't have any problems of scaling up, high quality video streaming, text messaging, anything to do with the internet. What is even the problem of scaling blockchains? Why are they so slow?
Because the reason you would want to use a blockchain in the first place is so that you know the integrity properties you get. You know what could happen without having to reason about what some third party would choose to do. Sorry, that was way too technical of an answer, but I think that's why.
Yeah, my explanation is that because the only point in a blockchain is this decentralization, which translates into integrity by numbers, meaning integrity by a little bit like with democracy. It's not necessarily very efficient, but it has a higher level of integrity than all the other systems out there, and it works by letting everyone see and verify the integrity of everything. And if you want everyone to know that the right thing was being done with, let's say, Bitcoin transactions or Zcash transactions or Starknet transactions, then unless you have some marvelous math, you basically want to allow them to do this at a reasonable rate on their laptops. But people buy their laptops for doing a bunch of other things as well, like going on podcasts as we're doing now. So you cannot expect them to scale to the levels. I mean, when we use this like video streaming, someone has bought these huge computers and put in, fiber optic fibers and, paid a lot of money for this infrastructure. And if you would do the same thing with blockchain, I mean, arguably some blockchains are doing that. Like I think Solana famously went down that route. And I think somewhat sadly, maybe Ethereum is going a little bit in that direction of basically saying, oh, let's just scale throughput, like just everyone 10x everything. And then what will happen if you go down that route is that very quickly you have something that looks like a bank or Visa. Like there's, 5 computers run by very large corporations, and you need to rely on them. So if you want to make it democratic, if you want to make it resilient, if you want everyone to be able to operate it, then that limits your scale to whatever people can use on commonly available means. And that's how scalability becomes a problem for blockchain. Yeah. So we're nearing the future and closing. So let's each of us say, like, first of all, what are you up to these days, and what are you excited about next in the context of ZK, Zcash? What you're working on. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
you
I'll
go
say the
first. I
same for
saw that you
yeah.
announced that STWO was live on Starknet mainnet yesterday. That's exciting because STWO's a high quality new
Yeah,
algorithm, and I always pay a whole lot more attention to things that are in mainnet than
yeah,
the
yeah. Rightly
big
so.
filter.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I have a lot of exciting things to choose from. Stu indeed went live yesterday. It uses very small numbers when it's generating its zk-SNARK proofs. So
Yeah.
it's using 32-bit integers, actually working over the Mersenne prime, 2 to the 31 minus 1, which makes it like blazing fast, and makes it compatible for really fast client side proving, generating zero knowledge proofs on your smartphone in, second or a fraction of a second. So there's a lot that I'm excited about on the technology front. Right now, the thing I guess there are a lot of things I'm excited about, but for Starknet, it's about, we see this immense opportunity, which is to take the zk-SNARK technology that we invented and made useful for scale and use it to expand the Bitcoin GDP and the Bitcoin economy. I think Bitcoin is by far the most resilient and, as you mentioned, well-known blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it's being hodled, which means people sort of, just keep it under their mattress or something, which is great. But both for ideological reasons and also just purely, capitalist reason, if you have something that is worth a lot, you would like to put it into productive use in a safe way that is compatible with the way it was created. So, like, if you have a house, you may want to take a mortgage against it and then, invest that and generate yield. So if you have a Bitcoin, if there was an economy layer that is very much like Bitcoin in the sense that you own your life and you don't custody it with others, and there's very little counterparty risk, in which you can borrow against your Bitcoin, or by the way, against your Zcash as well, and then do all sorts of creative things with that to generate yield and, put it into work. I think a lot of people would want that, and that's what we're building on Starknet. So I'm very excited about that. One last thing I'll say I'm excited about is that we have a lot of interest and plans in contributing to Zcash as well by also having Starknet, settle safely onto it. Once we have the, what are they called? TZEs or
transparent Zcash extensions.
Exactly. So if TZEs become a thing, then we can, we already have on testnet demonstrated, I think yesterday, that you can actually, you can settle a Starknet basically block onto, Zcash with TZE. So I think there is also a very exciting opportunity there, at least for me, for like the two ZK projects I love most in the world to somehow be combined. Okay, now your turn. What are you working on and most excited about?
I work for Shielded Labs, and all of the things that we do are totally Zcash focused. And the common theme is that we really care about increasing the security and the sustainability of Zcash. We're really long-term. We've always been like this. And the biggest thing that we're working on, which has become somewhat controversial among some Zcashers, so you might pay attention, especially if you love controversy. It is a proposed upgrade to the Zcash consensus protocol to add a finality gadget. And I've been meaning to ask you about this. Maybe now's not the time to go into it, but
Let's go into
it. With like the proposal from Abdel from Starknet to make a Starknet L2 that settles on Zcash, I'm like 90% sure this is one of those things that actually needs a very specific and reliable kind of finality, right? Because if you settle some Starknet blocks onto the Zcash blockchain, and the Starknet users are relying on that, and then that block gets rolled back, so now those transactions have never happened, that sounds bad. And like you, I like to try to reduce the risks and the vulnerability, like the attack surface, to the bare minimum that's even possible. So that's the main thing that I spend most of my time thinking about, is how to add another security layer on Zcash to eliminate or corral certain kinds of risks that could damage users in the long run. That's what I'm excited about. I love this kind of work.
So maybe let's take one last question before we go to things from that we got from Twitter before, and maybe we can also read some of the. Can you read some of the comments and questions, folks? If you have questions, please post them, and we'll try. You pick a few questions and we'll answer. So what about the neighborhood? What do you think of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana?
I like it. I like that neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood.
Is there any, what, that's one of the, okay, those who don't know, one of the great things about Zooko is that he's very magnanimous, and very welcoming, and I like that. Yeah, okay. Is there any blockchain you do not like? What about Monero?
I don't want to talk about that neighborhood. Don't go to that neighborhood. It's don't visit there, in my opinion. In all seriousness, I've been exposed, and actually I've been involved in Monero for a long, I've been friends and collaborators with most of the Monero cryptographers over the last 10 years. But they have a high churn rate. Most of the ones that were my friends and collaborators have ceased contributing to Monero. But anyway, so there's a lot of things I like about the Monero culture and community and network and technology and stuff, but there's something bad about the culture, and that can ruin everything. Does that make sense? If you have
somewhat maxiness, they also got the maxi virus.
I mean, lots of people suffer from the maxi disease, but just because humans are tribal, and then because of their bags, and put those two things together, and it's a powerful combination. But
still, it's ridiculous. This maxiness,
where they tolerate culturally, the community tolerates lies and ad hominems, attacks, and that's considered to be virtuous or admirable or acceptable in the discourse, and that is really compounding. It's one of those feedback loops where it makes things worse and worse over time, and then the worse they get, then the worse it gets. Anyway, let's talk about something else. Solana's great, Bitcoin's great, Ethereum's great. They do have, especially Bitcoin does have some of that negative culture of tribalism, but it's Bitcoin is much bigger than that, right? You can I know a lot of happy Bitcoiners who don't spend much of their time engaging in tribalism.
To me, it's a bit strange, especially with Bitcoin, but with all the maxis, if you're the US dollar, wouldn't you want there to be stocks and a New York Stock Exchange and a NASDAQ? Sure, you want that. You want this economic activity. So if you're Bitcoin, don't you want a whole bunch of other tokens related to you, built on you? And in some sense, every crypto token or system after Bitcoin is reliant on Bitcoin. And I even remember, I saw that Satoshi, when he was still corresponding, he was asked about some folks, including Hal Finney, were discussing to get sort of a Bitcoin style DNS system, sorry.
Oh yeah.
Something better. And he was asked about it, and people were saying it will have its own token. And Satoshi said, yeah, sure, it will have its own token, and he said it should be a separate chain. Probably would have called it an L2 today, because it would be somehow settled or merged mined with Bitcoin. And Hal said it would, including its own token. And Satoshi answers Hal and says, yeah, sure. And they would have some exchange rate and be traded. So like Satoshi was very much in favor of, layer 2 side chains, having tokens and so on. Anyways, that's about Maximus.
Yeah.
Last question.
Struggling more directly. So I don't have to convince Bitcoiners to do anything in order to succeed at my job. But that whole Starknet L2 you were describing, isn't that reliant on some improvements or extensions to Bitcoin?
Okay, terrific question. It's really so my answer is I do not have to rely on what Bitcoin decides or not in order to offer this thing that we offer already today. So, folks can already stake Bitcoin on Starknet and generate yield and operate the network. By doing so right now, they are going with some wrapper. So folks who are comfortable with a wrapper can do that.
Does that mean that Bitcoins are custodied?
It goes to there's a whole bunch of multi-sigs. So yeah, exactly. And you can choose the flavor of the multi-sig you feel comfortable with. And if you don't feel comfortable with any flavor of multi-sig, then you should not be doing this. That's fine. So we're working with the great Alpen Labs team to have a more secure bridge based on cryptography called BitVM. Again, that also does not depend on what Bitcoiners decide or don't decide. And then the safest way would be if we get something like, we hope to get, let's say, with TZE in the world of Bitcoin, OpCat soft fork is enough. But we're not dependent on that. So like, my hope is that Bitcoiners realize that this is actually good. This is what Satoshi would have wanted. He would have wanted much more. But even if they're not convinced, there's enough financialization for those who are interested to be done without that.
Okay, so the addition of OpCat would improve the efficiency and would also allow reducing the trust assumptions by going
exactly.
It would instead of or something like that.
Exactly. It would have like Stark verification and covenants and a whole bunch of things on Bitcoin, which would mean that you do not have to rely on multi-sigs or even the weaker assumptions of BitVM bridge. But we're not relying on that.
I have a spark of hope for you. You know what's really, really great for motivating people to do better and showing them how to do better is competition. Nothing motivates you more than seeing someone else succeeding at the thing that you thought you were going to do.
Yeah.
I can say from experience, I've been out-competed so many times as the best teacher.
I agree. And, I look, like all of the scaling solutions that use ZK are basically using, my zk-SNARKs and the stuff that we did. And of course they're competition, but I am much happier for it than because like, if you're in a field with no one competing with you, you're probably doing something that no one cares about.
Right.
And I think, as you said, competition is really great.
Yeah, not just for motivation, but also from learning. But I don't think you got my point. I wasn't talking about Stark. I'm sure Starknet has lots of competitors. My point was Bitcoin culturally has been super duper max conservative, which is an interesting trade-off and has a lot of advantages, but it also has these disadvantages, right? But if Zcash keeps going up compared to Bitcoin, and if Starknet deploys an L2 on Zcash using TZEs and it works and is like safe and useful and popular, that will really light a fire under their asses.
I tend to agree. So closing question, and then we'll take maybe a few questions from what folks have written. Okay, how does privacy look 5 years out?
Ooh, I don't know. My focus is just on making Zcash more secure and more sustainable so that it will still be widely available and reliable and safe 5 years from now. But there's a much, the world is huge. Like the world is huge and changing rapidly, and it seems to be changing faster and faster. I've always felt like that my whole life. I'm 50 years old and
we're just getting older and older.
That or I'm getting older. You're right. I don't know. 5 years.
Okay.
The world, I think a whole bunch of people will be working on Zcash to further improve it 5 years.
I can tell you one thing which is that I know for sure that at least Starknet is going to be a lot more private, and I hope that it will also be more connected to Zcash. But because these are two things we're working on, So let's see some cool questions. Do you see any of the questions in the comments? Like, because the screen
I
is
have a
too far
question.
from me.
This is
Yeah.
totally a geeky thing that only
Yeah.
I'm interested in. Can I throw one in real quick?
Of course.
Does BitVM still use Blake 3 for its secure
I
hash
have
function?
no idea.
Okay. Well, what about
But I
STWO?
can get back to you on that.
Does STWO use Blake 2S or Blake 3 or something inside of STWO?
Okay, STWO definitely uses Blake. It's a really good hash function, really fast, and actually STWO proofs for it are very efficient. So yes, STWO
Okay.
does
That'd be
use
great.
in production as of yesterday. STWO does use
Awesome.
Blake, and it's an awesome
I'm going to go tweet
hash function, which for those who don't know, Zooko is one of the creators of. So thank you for that as well. Yes. Okay, let's see. Do you see from the comments on the side of the window any like cool questions to answer? You can scroll through it because I'm too far from the screen and I can't see it.
Oh, comments. Oh my God, there's a lot of comments. What caused exchanges to delist privacy? This is just the last one on the list. What caused exchanges to delist privacy coins? That's an interesting question. It varies because exchanges are all different and they're all in different countries. And in some cases, it was actually the bank that exchange needed in order to be able to transact fiat, which required them to delist Zcash before they would bank them. That happened in the UK. But exchanges in the United States all support Zcash, Kraken, Coinbase, and Gemini. And I think that's an important data point that a lot of people don't think through.
Okay. Any other questions you see there that are interesting to answer? You scroll through the comments. Pick a couple of...
What is left for cypherpunks to bid early on? I don't know. It's too hard to predict that way. Like what you should buy or sell is not something I'm going to be able to help advise.
Here's one that Juan Benet asked about.
Oh yeah.
What next applications of ZK are you very excited about? Next applications.
Well, whatever they are, they could, as long the ones that are focused on integrity can be well implemented on a validity focused blockchain thingy like Starknet, right? Like there's this general purpose property that it does the thing you want and it comes with a proof that it did the right thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
So for me, that's like really interesting thing, which I don't yet have a product for, but I would really like it to happen. It's like this ultimate decentralization and democratization of sequencing, right? Because like basically with integrity proofs, anyone could say, hey, join this Signal channel for a while, send your transactions there. You don't have to worry about anything because the only thing I can do is sequence them. And you don't know who I am. And then just submit to the state, to the network, let's see, something like Starknet or Zcash. Hey, here's an update of part of the state. And here's a proof that it is valid. And like, so you could have these like, small parties, whatever, Tupperware parties, or like, hey, why don't you come here and like, we'll do a bunch of fun stuff. And you have the integrity of a program, and you don't care who the sequencer is. You don't care who's coming with you. You submit your transactions there, and then the whole thing sort of closes up, and there is an update to the state of the system, and everyone's happy. So like, to me, this is like the end state of how blockchains ultimately look. It's not even one central mempool or something. It's just everyone doing whatever they want and still being able to sort of rebase everything back to the bigger world.
Well, I thought of something else, a ZK, future ZK stuff.
Yeah.
Near future, different people have already been working on it, apparently. It's proofs of web browsing and proofs of photographs and proofs of screenshots and things like that. And the point is, all that stuff can be and is being faked more, right? Like if someone sends you a screenshot, it might be fake. And it goes back to the UX thing. Like normal users who just want to do stuff and don't care about learning technology, and they have normal assumptions. And one of the assumption is if somebody sends you a screenshot, that's proof, right?
Yeah.
And as technologists, we know, oh, well, that could be faked. And
Well,
then,
now more than ever, right? You
but
just
now
ask
more than
AI.
ever, like,
Yeah.
so my prediction is that if people are relying on screenshots as proof, that it'll be more and more common that other people take advantage of them, take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of that reliance by
Mm-hmm.
faking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things that ZK can fix. We could make it so that the normal, you don't learn anything, you don't subscribe to anything, you don't change any behavior, you just click the screenshot button, you paste the screenshot to your friend sees the screenshot, they assume that it's proof of the thing, but it actually is proof of the thing because the computer, the phone, makes sure, verifies to you that this screenshot cannot have been faked.
Yeah.
And then if it can't verify that, it pops up a big like question mark and says, your friend sent you this, but I can't tell if that's real or not. You know what I'm saying? That could be huge. And not just
Yeah.
screenshots, but web pages. You can say, look, I logged in to this site and this is what it showed me. Email.
Mm-hmm.
ZK can fix a bunch of safety and reliability issues with Web 2. And yeah, videos too.
So Zooko, I have one more question that was before sent by audience, but if you see, if I see there is a bunch of new comments, pick one more. I'll go first, and then you go pick whatever from there, and then we'll just wrap it up. So the question from the audience was, when do you think Starknet will add privacy features? So my answer is, hold my beer. It's going to come really soon. Because of the renewed interest in privacy, finally, the funny thing is, like, my team, like Abdel and others, are coming to me and say, hey, we need to add privacy now. It's like really important. And I'm like, as like CEO, I'm saying, wait a second, like, do people care about it? And they say, well, they do care about it now. Like, look at Zcash. And as is always the case with these things, and at least my great team, the only thing is I can ask a bunch of questions, but then say, you know what, you're smarter than me and you're right. And probably now's the time to do more. So whoever asked that, like, when will Starknet add privacy features? My answer, it was DJ and Da. Real soon, and stay tuned. I cannot reveal more now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I said earlier that the price of Zcash going up fuels up the Zcashers, which is really good for the future. But another benefit of the price of Zcash going up is it inspires, like it teaches, like you as a CEO, your main job is to be skeptical and pick one thing and empower your team. So the price of Zcash going up really is important data. It's really persuasive data to a lot of people. And we saw just the last 3 years or so the opposite, where because of the Tornado Cash sanctions from the Treasury Department and all these like backroom bullshit where the government was trying to stamp out all of crypto, not just privacy, but just everything. But we saw privacy in particular die off. Like I talked to people and watched like our competitors slash partners around the world, and most of them just gave up on privacy during that era, right? They pivoted to something else or they went out of business. And I think we're about to see the opposite. I think we'll see a huge wave of either new or revigorated or people pivoting to privacy like you're talking about doing at Starknet.
So do you have any question that you fancy from there?
I couldn't find them. I started looking.
Okay.
No questions.
So let's call it a day or a morning or a night. Zooko, we should do this more often. Great to talk to you again. And keep leading privacy and the human value of it and the human need for it.
Yeah, keep building and improving and scaling StarkNet. I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Thank you. That we shall.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
How do I hang up?
I need to walk to some place and I'll hang up. Okay. Thank you.